Hello, welcome back, welcome to new listeners. As always, I really appreciate that you're taking some time to deepen your Dhamma practice by listening to Dhamma talks. I'm grateful that you're taking the time to listen to this Dhamma talk, knowing there are so many available online and other places. So thank you. May you be blessed by what you hear today. Today we're on page 56. We have been talking about the 4 stages of liberation, and on page 55 we concluded with 4 factors of stream entry. They were associating with superior people, hearing the teachings from superior people, proper reflection, that's really critical, comprehensive spiritual practice. So today we're going to step 2 of the 4 steps or levels of liberation. It's Sakadagami. It's defined as once returner. Let's see what that means. After their birth, they are destined to be reborn in this world, this earth that we're on now, just one more time. They have continued to weaken craving and lust, anger and aversion, violent anger or rage disappear. So there's nothing new, there's nothing unique in this for the Sakadagami. It's that they have polished, they have continued to perfect, improve, and cherish the successes they had as a stream winner. They are just better at the practice of Dhamma in thought, word, and deed. Most importantly, there's very slow to anger, may not anger at all, may be something like impatient or frustrated. You're not going to find them using violent and vulgar speech. They're not certainly going to be physically violent. They're just much more developed in the practice of Dhamma and the benefits that are received by this practice. The scriptures don't say much about Sakadagami, and I've read in some books a teacher will say nothing. He says, well, nothing really to add here. And then they go on to Anagami. So we'll do that. Anagami is non-returner. I forgot to mention that once returner means the worst case scenario for someone who dies as a Sakadagami is that they would be reborn as a person on this planet. That's once returner, not 7 more times or 3 more times as might be the case with a stream winner. So Sakadagami has knocked off 6 possible rebirths as a human and is down to 1 possible rebirth. Doesn't mean that they'll absolutely be reborn on this planet, but that if they are, that will be the last time they will be born on this planet. It doesn't promise they will be fully liberated, but it does promise or suggest they will move on to Anagami at least. So Anagami is non-returner, meaning when someone on this planet dies as an Anagami, they will not be reborn on this planet at all. They'll be reborn in what we would call a heavenly realm. There are quite a few of them in Buddhism. I'm not knowledgeable about that. It doesn't frankly interest me to speculate what it must be like to be in one of those heavenly realms, but it is taught that many of them are not suitable for finishing the work of the practice of Dhamma to the point of being fully liberated. So wherever an anagami goes in this afterlife, it is a place where they can finish the work and become an arahant. This is what the book says they have greatly reduced, not eliminated, the 5 lower fetters. A fetter is an obstacle. It's something that's keeping us. It's something we're still grasping at or holding on to. It's some fault that we have in failing to see Dhamma clearly. The first one is a self-view. That's the biggest one there is. The idea that this is me, this is mine, this belongs to me, this is who I am. Number 2 is doubt and uncertainty. By now, doubt and uncertainty has been greatly diminished just by becoming a stream winner. When we're an anagami, we could say we have so deepened our faith and our commitment that there's just very little, if any, noticeable forms that doubt takes. Doubt is a major enemy at all 3 of these first steps for us, and it masquerades in many different forms in such a way that we don't often or may fail to identify it as a form of doubt. Typically, it's a self-doubt. We may feel we are very faithful to the Buddha, his teachings, and we have a deep and abiding respect, certainly as a Sekadagami or as a Sotaban, for the Sangha, because we now can appreciate the work that they did to become a member of the Sangha. But we may still feel like there's just something wrong with us. There's still something that we lack. There's just some blockage that is going to keep us from being successful. Those are various forms that doubt takes. Number 3 was grasping at rites and rituals. We may not think of ourselves as superstitious. We may not feel like we engage in rites and rituals that we see others engage in, even other Buddhists. But there are things as simple as bowing down to statues of the Buddha or to teachers that can become a ritual. I've mentioned before, I've seen parents teach their 2-year-old children to bow down to statues of the Buddha or to teachers. And there's no possible way that a 2-year-old could understand what they're doing other than they're obeying what their parents have told them to do. We often have not examined the reason we behave in certain ways in our spiritual practice. It has become a habit. That means a kind of ritual, a kind that we perform mindlessly. So our job is to question why we light incense or burn candles or bow down or acknowledge ideas about the Dhamma by various things that we do. One common misunderstanding is that there are certain postures that must be assumed. You must sit on the floor, etc., unaided. You can't lean against the wall or sit in a chair. Your hands must be in a certain position, your feet in a certain position, etc. Well, that now is a ritual. If being fully liberated was dependent on something in the world, we would have to do something or go somewhere or some sacred place. Otherwise, we can't be successful. If we have to shave our head or we have to refuse to cut our hair, we have to dress in a certain way, we have to wear religious icons on our body, on our wrist or around our neck or on a ring, etc. If this was essential to success in our practice, then no one could be successful who didn't do those things. In the Theravada forest monk tradition, Buddha just wore robes. He didn't wear any jewelry. He shaved his head because it was practical. As much as anything, it wasn't because it made him a holy man. It was because head lice were issues, and matted hair was issues, and staying clean was an issue. You may not have had a bar of soap of any kind, certainly not shampoo, bathed in a river or a lake or a stream or a pond, or just dumped water over his head. So many of the things that may have become ritualized did so because that's just the only choices Buddha had. In the time of the Buddha, almost no one owned a chair. Only the rich, the wealthy, and no doubt Buddha sat in chairs before he left home. His father was the king of a small kingdom. They had a very luxurious life. When he sat on the ground, once he left that secular life, it's because that's where everybody sat. So let's not romanticize certain traditions or imagine that if we're sitting in a chair or if we're standing or lying down for some reason, we can't be successful. Buddha said there are 4 postures that we could be successful in: walking, standing still, sitting down, or lying down. It's possible to lay down on the bed, perfectly comfortable, and become fully liberated. So my point is simply, let's watch and see that we're not just repeating some behavior from rote memory or from some superstition we have that this is essential or necessary. It's a requirement in order for us to be successful. The 4th one is sensual passion. It's so difficult to imagine a life where we're not constantly trying to feel good. So when it says sensual passion, we have to remember that that's anything that comes to us through our 5 senses. So anything we see, hear, smell, taste, or touch creates pleasant sensations on our body. That is, we only want to see, hear, smell, taste, and touch things that give us pleasant sensations on the body. But the 6th sense door, the door of mind, is also creates sensations on the body. So our craving for certain things, our memory of certain things, our imagination of having sensual experiences and things that we do to stimulate sensual sensations on the body are all troublesome for the simple reason that they reinforce the belief that this body is who I am. It's not that there are a sin. It's not that you or we are condemned to hell if we have sensual cravings and that we experience sensual sensations, passions. It's that every time we do that, it reinforces the belief that this body constitutes my being. So the going to hell part is we believe those sensations are mine, and that is ignorance, and ignorance is hell. It's a place that causes us to suffer. So rather than it being somebody judging us, some deity, some god, some other deity is watching and keeping score and writing it down in a book, and we're going to have to answer to what they have recorded at some point in the future. That is not the teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha teaches every time we're craving for sensual pleasures, even of the slightest kind, we are defeating ourselves in the practice of Dhamma. So it's not that we can avoid sensations arising on the body. Every time we see something, sensations arise on the body. When we hear, smell, taste, touch, or think about things, pleasant and unpleasant sensations arise on the body. Our challenge is to not claim them as belonging to me. We cannot prevent them from arising on the body so long as we're conscious. So it's one form of trying to prevent them is abstinence. There were cases in the early Christian monks where they wore shirts made out of hair because it was so uncomfortable. They slept on stone beds. They went down to the marsh and would sleep out where the mosquitoes could eat them all night. Native American people did sweat lodge ceremonies and Sundance ceremonies that required them to have a physical pain and suffering because it was an attempt to defeat the identity that this body is me, it belongs to me, it is who I am. We must defeat the identity that this body is mine and that it constitutes who I am. We must defeat that delusion. It may not require us to torture the body. It does require us to discipline the mind in such a way that when pleasant sensations arise because we're having a pleasant time, we don't cling to them, we don't hold on to them, we don't imagine that they constitute what happiness is and that they arise according to laws of nature over which we have little or no control. There's a Zen Buddhist saying, we cannot keep birds from flying over our head, but we can prevent them from nesting in our hair. So translated, we cannot keep various sensations of pleasure or displeasure arising into consciousness and on the body, in the body, but we don't have to claim them. We don't have to extend an invitation of hospitality to them. We don't have to invite them into our house as a house guest. We just notice they have arisen. All things that arise pass away. That's anicca. All things that arise are a form of dukkha, and all things that arise are not self. There is no self in anything that arises as a sensation, as a thought, as a feeling, as an emotion that has a self. And the last one, number 5, says repulsion, dislikes, things we hate, and after death is destined to be reborn in a Brahma world and obtain Nibbana there. So the difference between number 4, sensual passions or sensual pleasures, those are things that we actively seek, remember, have fantasies about, look forward to in the future. We can say that pretty much everything we do in a day has some part of an intention that we will enjoy it, that we'll like it. We try to avoid having to do things we don't like and don't want to do. That's called aversion. So number 5 is repulsion, dislikes, aversions, distastes, rejecting. That's the other half of the coin of sensual passions. So we want certain kinds of pleasures and we don't want other kinds. And both of those wantings, or wanting either one of those, not wanting either one of those, is the foundation of suffering. And the anagami has mastered this craving. He has defeated craving, he or she, excuse me for gender identities here. They have mastered this habit of wanting certain kinds of experiences and not wanting other kinds of experiences, and they have begun to live a life of equanimity, a balanced mind. When pleasures come, they just know and let go. They don't cling, they don't revel in it, they don't roll in it like a pig in a mud bath. And when painful, discomfort, things like, if you have ever been to India or other parts of Asia, maybe continents I haven't been on, it gets really hot and it's really humid. And for those of us, I grew up in Oregon, we didn't have extreme heat and we had very little humidity. It's quite a shock to the system. Recently here, I'm in Vietnam today, it was 104 with a very high humidity. You sit in a chair quietly and you're dripping sweat. That's uncomfortable. Now, if you add sleeping outside, in Asia, they have rice paddies. Rice paddies are where mosquitoes are bred. So there's very few places you can go, except possibly in a middle of a city like Bangkok or Hanoi in an air-conditioned hotel. Otherwise, most any place you go, there's lots of mosquitoes. There are scorpions, there are rats, there are all kinds of biting insects, bed bugs and fleas, etc. Now, this was the life the Buddha led. He led a life where he was being eaten up on some level by the natural world. When it rained, when it was winter time, no doubt he got cold because the body gets cold and the body gets hot. In order to live a life of equanimity, we have to just notice that is happening and stop imagining that it's happening to me. Now, not sure I'm going to finish this page in the allotted time. So I think today we'll call that enough. We're at 25 minutes. And I'll give another talk about the 6 qualities required for reaching Anagami. Thank you for reaching the end of this talk. Thank you for setting aside time for Dhamma in your life. Thank you for your interest and commitment to your own liberation, which will be the greatest blessing you can give to the universe, to your family, your friends, to this troubled and painful world. Thank each and every one of you. May you be blessed by your practice of Dhamma.